Hey everyone, John Hansbrough here with the LBL Group. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to talk about surprise medical bills. What is a surprise medical bill? When could you get one? And at the end of this video, if you stay with me, I'm going to share with you a key resource to possibly prevent you from getting a surprise medical bill. So medical bills in general, you're going to have two main things. You're going to have a certain amount that you're going to pay if you go get services from a hospital or a provider if they're in network, right? And if you go out of network, you're going to pay a lot more potentially. So you maybe have heard about that, but you might not know what the difference is. So I want to go in a little bit about what a difference is between inpatient versus or in-network versus out-of-network care, and then what a surprise medical bill is and how that comes into play. So you may have heard that if you're going to go get access to medical care, you should try to make sure you go in network versus out of network. But you might not really know what the difference is there. And so I want to talk a little bit about what that means and why that's important to you. So when you're going in network, it means that you have a contract that going to this provider or this hospital, you're going to pay a certain amount for those services that they render. Your health plan is going to pick up the remainder, and the hospital or provider isn't going to charge you anything extra, right? They're saying, if we are going to do this surgery, we're going to charge a certain amount. That's what it means to go in network. Out of network is different. It means that they haven't actually agreed to taking a certain amount of money for a procedure. And it means it's just you're going to get billed whatever they feel like billing. And so because that provider or hospital doesn't have a contract with your health plan just throws their hands up and says, you're going to have to pay whatever they deal with. We're going to cover a certain amount, but we can't put a cap on how much they might charge you. So it's up to you. So that totally makes sense, right? Go inpatient, try to avoid, or go in network, try to avoid out of network. But in reality, as like anything, it's a little bit harder to actually make sure that comes into play. So a common area where people aren't really aware of some of the decisions being made around the care being delivered to them and their providers and who they're getting access to and all that is emergency rooms. So emergency room utilization is a major driver of healthcare costs, usually because patients don't have a ton of control over who they're seeing and whether that person is in network or out of network. It's so bad, in fact, that Health Affairs, a really esteemed medical journal, it estimates that about 1 in 5 patients going to the emergency room are going to receive a surprise medical bill. So that's pretty bad, right? Because the issue that you're going to have is you go to the ER, you're going to sign an intake form where you're saying that you're responsible for any payments not covered by your insurance. And then you're going to go see different specialists depending on what's going on with you, right? So if you watch a TV show like Grey's Anatomy, 10 different doctors might come see you because you come in with a gunshot wound or you broke your wrist or something like that. And so what's going to happen is that they're going to, admit you as an inpatient. You're going to get the medical care that you need and you're going to go home. And it's going to take about 30 to 60 to 90 days for the medical billing cycle to come through. And your health plan is going to get a list of charges from the hospital. And they're going to say, okay, this we cover, that we cover, this we cover, but oh, who's this, anesthesiologist? Maybe we don't cover that provider because that provider is just contracted with the hospital, but they're not contracted with your health plan. So they might not be in the network that you thought they would be by going to that hospital. So an issue there is that you're going to have hospitals in network, but maybe certain providers at that hospital not in the network. That's pretty common in the emergency room because things are happening pretty fast. You're not, waiting 2 weeks before seeing providers. So you have some time to vet people and make sure they're in network or out of network. And so if you see one of those providers that's not in your network, they're going to send you a direct bill because your health plan said, hey, I'm not going to pay for that anesthesiologist, but you didn't have the ability to decide who you were going to get care from in the moment. So that anesthesiologist sends the bill directly to you. So you might receive a bill for like $50,000 for some services rendered, and you might not even know who the doctor was because, you're in a state of distress. And so in that scenario, you basically are going to go to your health plan and say, hey, what are your coverages for out of network costs or for out of network charges? And your health plan might have some benefits there. So you might be able to get them to reimburse you for certain charges, but you probably are going to be on the hook for a significant amount of money by getting that out of network care. The issue is that you didn't do that knowingly, right? You didn't go and say, hey, I want to go to this hospital, even though it's out of my network. I know I'm going to pay more for that. I'm fine with it. That's not usually how people make these decisions. They think, hey, I know that this hospital is in my network, so I'm going to go there with the assumption every doctor working there also takes your health insurance. They might not, though, and that's where you're going to receive that surprise medical bill. So that surprise medical bill is a major issue with people, right? We see a lot of medical debt as part of people's bankruptcies now in this country. And a lot of times That's due to surprise medical bills. So to fight back against surprise medical billing, the one fix I've got for you is to amend your admitting documents. So when you check into the ER, you're signing away a lot of rights that you might not really be aware of. One of those is that you're taking on a willingness to take any financial responsibility above and beyond what your insurance covers. And that's a pretty big commitment. And that's where these surprise medical bills come in, because they argue that, well, when you were admitted to the ER, you signed this consent form and said, anything not covered by my insurance can be billed directly to me. So before you sign, be sure to write in, as long as providers are in my insurance network. Because when you go to the hospital, of course, you're assuming that you're going to be responsible for your copays and deductibles as outlined in your health insurance plan. Is what you're not anticipating is that one of the doctors delivering care in the emergency room at your in-network hospital doesn't take your insurance. You have little control over who's on duty that night, and leaving it up to the doctors to determine where they're getting the highest pay for services isn't really fair to you. So if you can put that into your admitting documents, that gives you a little bit of recourse if you do get that surprise medical bill. It's going to allow you to challenge that and say, hey, I said I was going to pay the copay and deductible, assuming it was in-network insurance, in-network providers that I was visiting, but I didn't say that I would bear any financial responsibility because you decided to outsource this specific medical service to a provider outside of my insurance network. So this limited consent gives you a basis for arguing later. And it's not perfect, right? Surprise medical bills are a big issue in this country, and they're not going away just because you're going to write on a piece of paper. But it does give you a basis to defending yourself after the fact, because some of those surprise medical bills can run up in the 50,000 or even six-figure ranges, right? You might have a surgeon open you up. They just decided not to take your health insurance, and that could cost you dearly. So be sure to take a look at the documents that you're signing and paying attention to what kind of financial responsibility you're opening yourself up to. So last thing before you go is that I've got a freebie for you. Included in the description for this video, there's a link to a template protest letter. So this is a template protest letter that you can download, amend as it's needed, depending on your state and your name and whatnot. Send that to the administrator, shaking you down, trying to get the surprise medical bill paid. It's going to reference your limited consent to providers who are in-network only. And it's also going to reference saying that, hey, if you continue trying to make this collection effort, I'm going to refer you to my state's Department of Insurance and my state Department of Consumer Affairs. Hopefully that's going to do enough to try to get that charge argued down, because the last thing you want if you're having a child or you have to go to the ER is the surprise medical bill suddenly charging you $10, $20, or $50,000 even. And so, like we talked about at the top of this video, surprise medical bills are a big issue in today's healthcare system. We're trying to fight back against that. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and take a look at some of the other videos on our channel, trying to help everyone understand the healthcare system a little bit better so we can make it better for everyone as a whole. This has been John Hansbrough with the LBL Group. Have a great day.